Hello, hello, hello. Welcome, welcome, welcome. I just recorded an intro that I liked a lot better, but that's okay. Roll with the punches, as they say. Welcome, welcome. You should have been there. You should have been there for the previous intro, because I was talking. Well, yeah, I was talking about how I was like, I feel like I'm a comedian on stage. I was like, how y'all been? How y'all been? Welcome back. Welcome back to INTP to INTP with your host, James. So, yeah, I hope you've been well. Well, I did clean up a little bit. The reason why I cleaned up was because the books were actually too heavy. And they caused the table to bend a bit, so I had to take the books off and bend the bars back. But that's good now. That is good now. Yeah, I hope you've been well. I've been sidelined. I was sidelined a bit with just like a neck pain. I stayed in bed for about a day or two, but I feel great now. Like I'm 100%. So, back to share with you the latest musing, the latest thought that I really feel I'd love to discuss it with you so that we can solidify it together and just see what comes next. I mean, the next video will just be building upon it. And the title I have, the working title I have right now is "It's Simpler Than You Think, Just Aim." And we will see if by the end of the video that title changes a bit. But it is related to... It began with some of the books that I've been reading. One of them is Psycho-Cybernetics here. Cybernetics, the word cybernetics was, so, you know, we did space travel. We invented missiles and stuff. And engineers had to solve the problem of, how do we aim these things? How do we aim a missile? How do we aim a spacecraft? There's just so much going on. The target is so far away and there's so much noise going on. How do we make sure the missile gets there? Well, how about this? What if we lose the idea, the main idea of like answering the question how, and simplify the question to is simply cybernetics, which is create a feedback loop such that, you know, like, here's an example right here. I want to point at my eye on the camera. Well, how, quote unquote, how do I do that? That's a very interesting, that's a, Psycho-Cybernetics, the book talks about how, like, that's kind of a nonsensical question for humans. You kind of just try, and then you adjust, and then there you are. Using my eyes, I gather the data, and then I create a feedback loop that allows me to just use whatever muscles that are available to me. I don't even know which muscles I just used, but I used whatever muscles are available to me, and I watched as the loss, if you think in terms of AI, I watched as the loss, the gap closed until I did it. And Psycho-Cybernetics talks about how the human mind, it first asks a question and then it concludes that, wow, the human mind works a lot like that. And that's what led me to this working title of "It's Simpler Than You Think, Just Aim." And as I was thinking about that and talking about, you know, my previous video was about transformation, and I realized that, you know, there is a collective unconscious, perhaps there's a collective unconscious idea. You know, if you're a fan of Jordan Peterson, he talks about the collective unconscious and how they're images. Circle. There's somewhere you're going here. There are images that are all pointing to the same idea. Target. Transformation into some target. Transformation into some target. And as I looked around, I just saw it over and over again. And I'm a big proponent. I'm a big one of the things I find most fascinating is the unconscious mind, and how much it knows, how much we know without knowing. I mean, that's why I find MBTI such a fascinating thing, because as Carl Jung said, whatever if you do not make the unconscious conscious, then you will forever be controlled by the unconscious and call it fate. And I am of the mind essentially that what we call interest and what we call fascination, these things are simply our unconscious mind telling us, hey, this is something important for you to look at. This is you. This is you, and this is your direction. And as Jordan Peterson would say, how can it be any other way? It makes complete sense, even from an evolutionary standpoint, that your interests would point you to who you are, right? So that's the general idea about AIM. And let me first, I have many examples to show you. So you know what I'm going to do is I'm going to first allow you to see the notes I have, just so that you know somewhat what I'm thinking about. And I will meander towards just the picture so that we can come to conclusions. So the first thing I will link to, okay, I'll start there. The first thing I will link to is I talked last video, or no, 2 videos ago I talked about metaphysics. And I talked about how quantum physics has raised the suggestion, not the suggestion, has actually shown us that time and space is not fundamental to reality. In other words, I mean, and then I posted, I did more thinking about that, and then I realized that if time is not fundamental to reality, then it actually explains, it actually shows us why entanglement is not such a crazy thing. Entanglement is the idea where at some point in the timeline, I have something that splits into 2 parts, and these 2 parts are linked causally. Like if one's spinning left, the other spins right. However, you don't know which one is which. Sometime in the future, you measure one. And when you measure that one, entanglement shows us that the other one's state is automatically decided and known. And a very easy way to understand that is to think about time as an interconnected holistic system. If I measure it now, then it will change the past, in other words, because all of the timeline is all connected. And one example of that they have observed, I mean, this is the simplified interpretation of a more complicated experiment, but this was the double slit experiment, where if you don't measure which slit the electron goes through, then it went through both. It just decides not to decide which one it went through. But even after it goes through the slits, and then you have a detector that checks which slit it goes through, then it went through one or the other. And this is an example of retrocausality, which is the time and space way to describe what happened. But if you think of time as one holistic interconnected thing, like everything is now, as they say, then this one makes complete sense. The detection happened so obviously. The electron was traveling from the source in one direction only. Even if the detection happened afterwards, time is not fundamental. So, like, just to make the timeline make sense, then the entire system will update such that this happens, right? I've been giving, like, I've been thinking about this, and I've analogized it to a lightning bolt. So how does a lightning bolt know to travel this way? Well, this way is the path of least resistance. We know it meets here. We know that perhaps it needs to be here at this keyframe, and at this keyframe, it has to. If it travels through this way, then it reaches the ground. How do we know it should go here? Well, because it reaches the ground here. It's all one holistic system we're seeing here. And the more I thought about how time and the events that happen in time can be thought of this way. I just realized that there's also the example, if you've ever done animation or video editing, there's the example of the keyframe. Let me see if I can bring up something that shows that. Here we go. Here's a great example. So if like quantum mechanics says, if I measure C and I know that it was here at C, and then I know at B it was at B, then quantum mechanics will update such that it always went through C and B, right? And like we don't have to think about time here. We just essentially think about the whole system as internally consistent in causality. Now, how is this related to aiming? Well, bear with me because there are many different interconnected ideas here. But this reminds me of, or this, you can think of this part down here as the aim. And then everything that happens in between, based on time, will happen as it happens. But we can trust, as has been said by many different people, including the Bible, we can trust that everything that happens in between was the path of least resistance. It had to happen in order for that outcome to happen. So you can imagine that like this is you traveling along here. And like let's say your outcome is you want to be you want to live in France, right? Well, as you're traveling this way, something happens here that you feel like is completely unrelated. However, it causes a series of events down this path. And then just when you thought that you would never make it to France, like a distant cousin of yours contacts you and says, hey, I'm going to France next summer, and I'm looking for a roommate. Would you like to come with me? And suddenly, you're going to France. And from the perspective of someone that is moving linearly through time, this makes no sense at all. But from the perspective of the entire timeline, it makes complete sense because this is the path of least resistance. This idea has also been brought up by Neville Goddard, and he talks about the bridge of incidence, bridge of incidence. And I've been thinking about how Neville Goddard's ideas, I mean, like if you think about them from pre-quantum mechanics, they don't make any sense at all. If you think about them from like cause and effect Newtonian physics, they don't make any sense at all. But with a quantum mechanical framework, it just like I feel like it all fits. And I think in my next video, or in a future video, I will draw all the parallels I can. So this tells me many different ideas I've been like I'm mixing together with you, and one thing I learned about with lightning as I studied about it is lightning joins the middle. In other words, lightning is a holistic system. It's not traveling from the sky to the ground. It's traveling both ways. And it joins, quote unquote, joins in the middle. But really it's just like instantaneously, it all exists at the same time. And just this conceptual idea I have, this metaphysical idea of there is no path. The path is your target. And like a homing missile, all you need to do is aim at it and keep adjusting towards it. Just like I was able to touch my eye on on the camera, but like how did I do it? I don't know. I mean, I all I did was know I did it, and then I watched. So let's see. I prepared a few images to explain this idea. And what I've been realizing is just like how all of these perhaps quote unquote like spiritual teachings are all related. So let's go into this. We can imagine that this is like, you wrote in your affirmation that you will be a millionaire. Little do we know, there are all these different ways that we've been taught to take our eye off that target, because that if you are unconditional about that outcome happening, unconditional, if you think about the word unconditional, then nothing else has to be in place for you to be completely aimed at that target. However, we add conditions. We add all kinds of conditions. For example, we don't even realize. Okay, first of all, conditions of space and time, where you say, "Oh, I don't have, like, I would love for that to happen, but I only have like 3 hours a day." I never asked you how much time you have. I just asked you, can you look at the future that you are a millionaire, right? So this is like an example of you taking your eye off of the psycho-cybernetic target you are aiming at. Other conditions is like, I don't know how I'm going to do that. Like, I never asked you how you're going to do it. Can you look at that target as where you're going? And other examples like that. So, and there's nothing wrong here, right? You have been taught this. And I think even like I grew up a Christian, and I understand like the truth and the metaphysical teachings of the Bible now, and I love reviewing those. And I've expanded, in my view, I feel like I've expanded beyond just the Bible. But I feel texts like the Bible, and then teachers like Abraham Hicks, Neville Goddard, these people, Eckhart Tolle, they are all talking about this. They are all talking about essentially how to unconditionally aim, how to keep it simple and just aim. So past and identity. So in the Bible, they say, behold, the old is gone, the new has come. You are newly born. You are cleansed of your sins. So like, can you be a millionaire? Oh, I wasn't a good student. Did I ask you how good of a student you were? I just asked you, can you be a millionaire? Are you a millionaire? And then all you have to say is yes. I've been poor all my life. Like you can hear all these ways. There's a concept of target fixation, right? You're aiming at something else, and so you're aiming. If you're aiming at it, that's all you'll see, and that's what you're going to move towards. To connect this to the quantum mechanical idea, like these conditions of space and time. One reason why these are so like they're so hard to let go is because we have that metaphysical lens of the Newtonian physics. But if we have quantum mechanical, then we can let all these go. Past and identity, like that's why I feel I was so drawn to spiritual teachings, because like more and more of what I thought was me, like for example my past or like my beliefs, I thought all those things were me, but the more I learn about what's not me, the more I can let these go, and then I can just simply aim unconditional. Like this is another way to talk about the word unconditional love. Unconditional love essentially is you letting go of everything that you think can put you between you and love, or in this case, your target. And I put mood here because what I've discovered is when I'm in a bad mood, I will automatically, or first of all, I'm in a bad mood likely for some condition in my life. I'm holding that condition between me and whatever I'm aiming at. So, Abraham Hicks talks about, like, don't even think about your goal. Don't think about how you're going to get there. Just think about how to feel good. Just think about feeling good right now. And what I've come to realize is these two things are the same thing. Because the only reason why you're feeling negative is because you are holding on to some condition in your life. And yesterday, I was feeling quite pulled down, hung down by certain conditions in my life. And all I chose to do was just, I watched a video by David Snyder who talked about, like, I love his teachings, by the way, because they're very quick ways to feel very good with zero conditions connected. You imagine some really beautiful and really good feeling memory from your past. You connect it to a color, and then you breathe in that color and you wash your whole body with it. And the beauty of this is how unconditional it is. The beauty of that exercise is how unconditional it is. And then when you wash yourself with good feelings, unconditional good feelings, you're able to let go of these conditions that you've been holding on to that turn you away from this unconditional aim that you have. And I came up with a physical analogy here that to drive this point home. I once tried to learn how to do a backflip, and I never actually learned. I would love to, though. I once tried to learn how to do a backflip, and you encounter this thing when you're trying to do a backflip. Actually, and extreme sports athletes learn this really fast, or extreme sports athletes know this. The trick you're trying to do is super easy, is very easy, as long as you focus only on doing the trick. The problem is there are parts of you that are targeting something else. So when you try and jump backwards and flip over your head, you will get this automatic fear or like instinctual response. Your feet are going into the air. Put your feet on the ground, and then this mixture of two different targets that you have cause you to fail in your backflip and fall on the ground, fall on your face or your chest, stomach. But if you just removed all of this, just like I showed you in this other one, if you just removed all of this other stuff and you focused only on where you're going, then you'll do it. A backflip is very easy, but removing all other conditions and instinctual reactive goals that don't take you to the backflip are getting in the way. Whatever we're aiming at is very easy to get. It's just all of these unconscious other aims that we have are getting in the way. So I was also, here's a quick example. If you've ever watched Everything Everywhere All at Once, this is the metaverse map, and Evelyn wants to go to the Kung Fu world, and she has to do a series of actions in order to get her there. This, as you can see, it looks sort of like the lightning bolt. alluding back to the quantum mechanical view of the world, all of these interconnected, interlacing events happening in the world will get us there. But, you know, the nodes in between, who knows what they are? They're just the path of least resistance, as Neville Goddard talks about. Here's another example of just simply aiming that I'm reminded. It's from the Bible. It's the story of Jesus walking on water. When the disciples saw Jesus walking on the water, they were terrified. In their fear, they cried out, "It's a ghost." But Jesus spoke to them at once. "Don't be afraid," he said. "Take courage, I am here." Then Peter called to him, "Lord, if it's really you, tell me to come to you, walking on the water." "Yes, come," Jesus said. So Peter went over to the side of the boat and walked on the water towards Jesus. But when he saw the strong winds and the waves, this is the important part here. This is him targeting something else, not targeting walking on the water towards Jesus. And you can think of Jesus here as mind. That's one way I like to think of it. But when he saw the strong wind and the waves, when he put the physical reality over the mental reality of his aim, he was terrified and began to sink. "Save me, Lord," he shouted. Jesus reached out and grabbed him. "You have so little faith. Why did you doubt me?" So I connect this once again to the idea of how simple it is to aim and how natural it feels to stop aiming. And by the way, I connect many biblical stories to these metaphysical ideas. I also find it interesting that Jesus reaches out, and that reminds me of, and you see this in the Bible a lot too, like, even though you will, as they say, sin is to miss the mark, right? That's the definition of the actual word. Even if you're aiming elsewhere, your subconscious mind, reality, will not allow you to fall completely off. It'll push you back onto the road, and so it's almost like it's interesting to see, like, even if you're off by a lot, you will unconsciously save yourself, just as Jesus did there. So okay, let's go through some more of the notes together. So in this new quantum mechanical world where it's like the other okay, yeah, I'll talk about that when I get there. Other counterintuitive ways we can move off the target of just unconditionally, this is I already have it, this is mine. Urgency. Once again, if you tie a condition of time to what you're doing, you're making it harder to happen, not easier. Focus on the outcome. If you need this outcome to happen, or else it's not happening, then you are once again off target. Focus on losses or successes. So losses and successes. The conditions in the middle, if the conditions in the middle are taking you off of your aim that it is yours already, then you're losing focus. Time, urgency, same thing. Other people, what other people say, like what do they have to do about it? All you do is remain right here. Right? Steps to take, how to do it, right way to do it, circumstances, time or space, folk wisdom, effort, pain, grit. It came too easily, so it's not real. Well, that's just doing this again. And this idea is so, I mean, of course, it's very counterintuitive, and I highly recommend you watch my metaphysics video, because it helps us understand, like, the assumptions we're making when we hold these folk stories as true. But, you know, I'm sure if you hear this phrase, there is no path, and then you look around you, you see there is no path. There are people that have just emerged out of nowhere, just suddenly. What did he do to deserve that? But they got it. That's just an example of what reality actually is. Reality is not about a linear path of effort and grit to get somewhere. You can instead simply be there. And you know, at a this one right here, these two right here is me like not going so. I'm talking to Newtonian physics is so insistent on cause and effect that we can get so stuck on thinking that we have to be the cause of the effects in our life, and like that's me. This is me talking about how that's so obviously not true. If you've ever done sales, it shows you that sales are not your doing. But with the outdated metaphysics of the Newtonian world, you might assume it is and then kill the sale. So I've seen this a lot. So I had a few sales positions in my life, and one thing that people will do is the sale will come too easily. You pitch it, and the person wants it, or you pitch it, and then like 1 minute in, they want to buy it, and you say, "Oh, sure, you can buy it, but hold on, let me explain what it is first." And what I've seen it happen where, as I explain it, they say, "Actually, you know, I don't want it," and this, like, to me, this is an unconscious belief in that, like, in an unconscious misunderstanding of sales and of reality, thinking everything has to happen through you. And so the salesperson that does this is saying, "Oh, that's not a sale yet until I sell you," and that's a misunderstanding. Like, there are people who I'm talking to right now. If you're watching this video and you leave, and that has nothing to do with me, has nothing to do with you. It just has to do with reality. Everything is interconnected. Everything's happening at the same time. And there is no cause and effect. It is a holistic system where effects emerge. That's a quantum mechanical way to look at it. And sales is a beautiful place that shows you that. There will be things that just happen to you, and you had nothing to do with it. But you did have something to do with it because you were there and you were open to it happening. You interacted. Space and time tricks you into thinking it is all you. It could all happen without you. At the very least, realize the world is constantly moving apart from you. I learned this as I went through a period of time when I was I wanted to meet pretty girls. I wanted to meet pretty women on the street. I would walk up and talk with them, and then every once in a while there would be a girl that would just be so intrigued by me just by me walking up. And you know, there may have been all kinds of things that caused that. For example, like I look like their brother, or I look like their crush from high school, or they've been like they were just maybe they had a dream that last night that someone was going to come and talk to them today, and then I come up and talk to them exactly the way that they dreamed, and then they're like, this must be destiny, right? These are all things that I do not control, and it expands your understanding of reality beyond this very simplistic Newtonian world where, like, no, hard work and grit and perseverance. If it wasn't that, then it doesn't count. Like, that's. I feel like that is very much the traditional lens that people have, and it blocks out reality. It blocks out reality. So I talked about Jesus walking on water. Here, Doctor Strange's portal. To me, Doctor Strange's portal is a great image for exactly what I'm talking about. We want to think that we need to walk where we're going, but if we can release enough conditions, that sounds prescriptive. That sounds like there's a how here. But all I'm saying is, if you can, I'm just going to say it that way. If you can release all the conditions that are keeping you here, then you can be there. Just like Doctor Strange says, I'm there, and he's there. And to say that again, if you can release all of these conditions, then you're there. And you know, like time and space are not fundamental. So I can't tell you when, but what I've seen is that this is true. And by the way, here's something else you can connect to this. Synchronicity, Carl Jung's idea, or Carl Jung's observation of synchronicity. It just seems, it's just so related to this image. Like, oh wow, I can't believe this happened. I can't believe my cousin, who happened to be going to France and happened to be looking for a roommate, and like it's 3 days before I was about to just give up and go somewhere else, but you know, because I held on to like knowing that I was going to be here, that obviously that happened, and this same idea is related, right? Here is I have more ideas that I wish to connect to this, and let's see how I can do it. So yes, extreme sports athletes are examples of like one way you can think of what I'm talking about here. You know, as I said, the working title of this video was "It's simpler than you think. Just aim." And even just aim is temporal a bit. It's simpler than you think. Just be. If time is not fundamental, then you already are. And here's some analogies. Extreme sports athletes understand. Like, how do you do that crazy trick? Well, you just do that crazy trick. And the emptier your mind is when you do it, and the more you just, what do you call it? You just throw it. I would love to know the actual term that they would give, but if you just know that you will land the trick and you do the trick, then you will land the trick. The more you think about all the other things that can happen, the more you end up doing something like, the more you end up doing something like this, like. This guy is trying to land here on his back before he can do the backflip, and thus he will not do the backflip. This classic bail. Bail is when you have contrasting goals, contrasting aims. If you only aimed at your trick, then you would land your trick. And and the phrase I'm connecting to this is easy to do, impossible if too many conditions. Here's another image that comes to mind: traveler's luggage. If you're trying to get somewhere, there are two kinds of people that try to get there. One person is saying, I can only go there if I have this and this and this and this and this and this and this. Like they have overflowing luggage. And if you overflow it too much, you just never can get there. If you overflow it just enough that maybe if you overflow it just a little, you can still get there, but it'll be way harder than if you did the self-reflection and you just this is spiritual teaching here. You just were attached to nothing except where you're going. You know, like even like a spiritual master, quote unquote, would just not even have luggage. they would say, I'll buy everything when I get there. This reminds me, once again, I was quickly reminded of Han Solo. You know, Han Solo's favorite quote when he flew through the asteroid belt, which reminds me of extreme sports athletes. Never tell me the odds. Never tell me the odds. Let's see if there's a complete set of quotes here. Ah, here we go. He turns towards the asteroid belt to lose the chasers. C-3PO, ever the rationalist, says, there's a condition here. Sir, the possibility of successfully navigating the asteroid field is approximately 3,720 to 1. Never tell me the odds, because it doesn't help me, because that is not where I'm aiming, because where I'm going is through the asteroid belt. One more example here. Large budget movie. Large budget movies are crazy to me because you've attached so many conditions to the success of this movie, when there are quite a few examples of movies that succeed with like basically zero budget. So it's a fallacy to say that the budget creates the success of the movie. And the larger your budget, the harder it is for this movie, quote unquote, it is for this movie to succeed. I mean, the most spiritually connected way to think of this is to completely detach budget from movie and to just think of the movie as a success. And, you know, it could be a high budget, but if someone connects the condition of a large budget to the success of the movie, then they have become weighed down. They become weighed down. And they're no longer aiming at their unconditional goal, at their unconditional aim that already exists. I wrote other things that I have realized are all other dimensions to develop in order for you to really get down this ability to just aim, detachment, which is simply releasing all conditions required to aim. Unconditional love and attitude. You have no conditions required to be full of love and to be extremely positive. That's very powerful. It allows you to aim regardless of what's happening. Lucky people, where everything seems to go perfectly. This is something I'm sure you've observed, but I've observed in my own life where there are just certain days in my life where it just seems like nothing can go wrong. And just the day before, everything was like so chaotic and crazy. But then I found this place of calm in myself. And then I walk through the day and it's like the whole world responded to my calm. And I saw nothing. It was just peace. I've seen this many times in my life. And I'm connected to everything I'm talking to you about today. You know, this it's this. You know, I wasn't looking anywhere else but here. And so things were very easy. I might suggest that it's easier to succeed than it is to fail, because to fail is to make your life so heavy and so full of conditions. To succeed is to just be empty in mind and targeting just one thing. I want to point to one more. I want to emphasize one more idea, which is like this is why spiritual texts talk about forgiveness, and they also talk about eternal life and dying before you're dying, because the more you can realize that your current identity doesn't have to live, it can die completely, then this aspect of the aims that you don't want to have, right here, like past and identity, you can let all that go. And the more you let that go, I mean, you can add trauma here, or resentment, the more you can just simply target right here. So I think I finally got there. I finally got to covering this big idea, and I had to kind of spider in from the outside, but I hope it was worth it for the people that followed. I think it's so beautiful. I think, so like, yeah, Buddhist texts, Taoist texts, Zen, they all talk about this. And I think the Doctor Strange portal is such a great image for what this allows people to do. Like I said, there is no path. All that is required is to let everything that is here go and aim where you're going. And you're there. So to just show you a little about how the sausage is made, a little background. I am thinking about connecting Neville Goddard's teachings to quantum mechanics because I think it is quite well connected. But yeah, that being said, that was the idea I wanted to get across. And looking back, the idea was, it's, as I title, it's simpler than you think, just aim. And if time and space truly are internally consistent and holistically complete, then you don't have to think about when it's going to happen or how it's going to happen. It will happen in the path of least resistance, as Neville Goddard talks about. And the other thing about this is, since we are all moving around along linear time, other people will just see this as like logically like the events. Of course it happened. The events were so just like the events happened just such that it's a coincidence. But perhaps you've noticed many times in your life where the coincidences are just ridiculous. Like what I find crazy about life is just how, what's the quote by Einstein? Just how orderly life is. Just how life hasn't been chaotic. Life has followed a certain storyline. Einstein, is it understandable? Quote. Like the most. Something about the universe explained, quote, Einstein. It's, okay, well, I'll paraphrase from what I remember. He said something like, the most incomprehensible thing about the universe is that it is comprehensible. And I think quantum mechanics injects some life into that idea, that it is comprehensible, because to say it like the double slit experiment with the observer shows us that reality will adjust itself so that it is coherent. It's coherent holistically. It will make sure the timeline all matches. So it seeks a sort of underlying order at the wireframe level, right? So in a way, it seeks order. Oh, and to connect, to sort of add a practical idea to this is, this whole this is very much Neville Goddard's teachings here, and Neville Goddard talks about like acting with the end, like the end already has happened, and I view it like I've come to really think that our thoughts do influence quantum reality, and such and so that if I live as if this is real, if I've imagined it and I've already experienced it, then in a way you can say that the quantum superposition is closed here. It is a key. I've created a keyframe in the future, such that everything else to follow the path of least resistance reorganizes itself such that that will happen. And all of this stuff, like everything that happens in between, like look at how like meaningless it is, but it all has to happen for this to happen. So I think that's an excellent analogy. For those of you who have followed me across the threads, I thank you. And an update just personally. What are the focuses of my life? Well, it is to deepen my ability to do what I just said, to deepen my ability to just aim, and like reflect on all the ways that I am not just aiming. That's like priority number one. Priority number two is I have a whole bunch of books, and it feels like my path in the near future is to read them and see what they tell me. And then number three are MBTI related pursuits. I'm doing meetups with my friend, and we are also recording podcasts in that direction, which are like we're learning so rapidly. We're learning so rapidly that I am very encouraged, and I feel it's all just going according to plan. As we tell each other, me and Derek, we say it's going all according to Keikaku. I've read. I'll show you, and then that's the end of the video. I read these books. I have read these books. So if you'd like to see, and if you'd like to read any of them, I highly recommend, especially if you're INTP, The Art of Focus, Psycho-Cybernetics, The Magician's Way. I didn't talk about that one, but it's related to the same thing I talked about today. Those three I highly recommend. Oh, I highly recommend the Kybalion, so that's 4. 3 Magic Words I'm reading right now. I highly recommend that too. So, especially if you heard some of the spiritual things I was talking about today, and you thought they were at least interesting to explore, those are books I highly recommend. And I look forward to providing more observations to you in the next video. And I'm going to wrap it up right here. I hope you have an excellent rest of the day. Insightful and full of synchronicities. See ya.